But that's probably a good place to start actually with that line
Yes.
because it's maybe an obvious thing, but I've always considered it as I don't think Pete was literally saying, I hope I die before I get old. I think it was more, I want to maintain this mentality. I
Hmm.
don't want to have, I'm not an old person's mentality, but I guess the song was kind of a dig at the establishment. And I
Exactly.
think it was, I don't want to become like those guys when I get older.
Right.
Is that how you
Right.
see it?
I do. In fact, he has said that, though I will say early interviews, as Pete will, I believe it 100%. And I hope I just, I hope I get dispatched before I get, and all that kind of thing. But he has said since then that it really was an anti-establishment dig. And he's said different versions of it. He also has said, I said it because I hope I die before I get rich and not old. But it is definitely an establishment type, and it comes from, you know, the surroundings that he was in
Mm.
when he wrote the song.
Yeah, that's it. And we can maybe go a bit deeper into that as we go along. Um,
Absolutely.
but should we maybe start? Actually, yeah, just going back to Hope I Die Before I Get Old. I think the perfect encapsulation of that line is the editing in The Kids Are All Right, where someone says, you hope you die before you get old. Do you really mean it?" And then, eh?
I was thinking about that movie this morning too, because that movie is imbued with a lot of aging comments. It's Pete's hearing loss and become a pulpo star and losing your hearing at 30, 35 years old, 36 years old. I mean, that's an old man's ailment technically.
Mm,
And the comment about nosebleeds and all that,
yeah.
it's no good. And he and Keith talking about becoming a cabaret act. And the whole, I can't remember if it's Kilburn or Shepperton, where I've got this guitar up, up here, if any of you little, fuckers want to take it. And even John kind of gets into the act. One of my favorite parts of that movie is John talking about, we got old before we got old much later than we expected. Now I'm too old to enjoy, or got famous much later than we expected. Now I'm too old to enjoy my money. And he's like 30. He's 30 years old. Like, dude, you have plenty of time to enjoy your money. And he did.
I think he enjoyed his money so much that he ran out of it and the Who had to keep reforming.
Exactly. I think you did okay, John.
That's it. So let's start by looking at just where the band are at when this
Mhm.
song around about this time. So we obviously the last episode we did was Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, which was 21st of
Yes.
May. So I
Yes.
guess in between that and the release of My Generation, and we'll probably be mentioning a few things we sort of mentioned in the Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere episode.
Yes.
But one comment from Pete, I didn't make a note of where he said it. He probably said it in a few places, to be fair. But and I think as part of this manifesto that he had in his mind, probably as Can't Explain was released, that we have about a year as a popular group,
Hmm.
which yeah, is quite something really to pick apart.
Yeah. No, like we talked about this last time. Nobody thought it would last. John said that, he would, we will either turn 21 or get married, whichever comes first, and then we're out, and Pete had this idea that, we'll blow up the group and then I'll go write film scores and television scores, no, it was ephemeral.
But it's kind of amazing to think the contrast between that idea and the fact that at the time of recording, they're just about to end their farewell tour at 80 and
Yeah.
81 years of age. You couldn't
And
get two polar opposites if you tried.
I know, like if you get a time machine and go back in time and tell 19-year-old Pete, hey, you're going to be 80 years.
Yeah.
Or even better, get 1975 Pete and watch him just lose his mind, you know. Because remember Roger's famous quote, "We'll be rocking in our wheelchairs," and that just sent Pete like around the bend. Like, no, no, we are not. And here we are.
I mean, technically, they haven't got that far yet. maybe
We are
that
still ambulatory. Yes.
maybe that is literally the cut-off point.
Yeah.
And another thing around this time is that the Who have started to develop that reputation as being the most exciting band around. I think, especially from a live perspective.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I think basically everyone is saying they are the most exciting band, certainly in the UK at this time.
Hmm. And this was the thing. I mean, anyway, anyhow, anywhere. It was a modest hit. Remember they were trying to capture the sound of the band live on this record, and so it was a modest hit, and but they were like, okay, we need to get something. We need to do something big. Like we're there, but we're not there. And so it depends on who you talk to, whether it was Stamp or Lambert, who were like, let's get something and really capture the essence of the band. And Pete had these lyrics kind of written out for a song, and they did it. The demos were blues songs. There's several versions of the demos, and the first one was because he was very inspired by Mose Allison's Young Man Blues and Bob Dylan. And so he was kind of like, playing around with this idea. And he had a few things were going on with him then. He had been approached by a group of kids, I want to say at the Gold Hawk, some Irish kids who asked him, like, you got I Can't Explain, which is a song, that meant a lot to us because it talks about our inability to articulate our feelings. But we'd like an anthem. And over the years, Pete's proved himself to be a big anthem guy. So he's like, okay, I'm going to write you something. And so we had that, but he was also in this element at this time. He'd been living with Barney, Richard Barnes, in this flat, and Kit Lambert kind of saw their living conditions and said, no, 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 my genius is not living like this. So he kind of plucked him out of this milieu and dropped him into Belgravia, which is this very fancy um, part of London. And and Pete was, I won't say he was a fish out of water because his parents knew very poor people and very rich people, so it wasn't that problem. But he recalls being sort of pushed out of the way at a counter in a store by a woman who was like, in her pearls and fur and, excuse me, but I have priority, and that kind of thing. And of course, the other big thing that was happening at the time was he had bought a hearse.
As you do.
Yes, one does. To be a drive around and be a snotty, arty kid. And he parked it out in front of Kit Lambert's apartment. And I think it was down, I think it was there for like 2 days. And then he went down one morning and it was gone. And he called and, called the police and said, what happened? Where's my car? And they said, well, we had a complaint. And so we had it towed. And he said, well, he filed a counter complaint that, hey, I was using that car. And it turns out that the Queen Mother had filed the complaint. That she would get in her car and they would drive her to Clarence House. And I guess they're going through Belgravia. She sees this hearse that's probably not in very good shape. And allegedly, it reminded her of the death of her husband, and that kind of thing. And so Pete thinks now that he probably was like, that she was like, well, I don't like seeing that. And so somebody probably made the complaint for her.
Mm.
But these were two things that sort of came together for him. The anthem for the fans and the disaffection with, this Belgravia sort of milieu that was like, I'm going to write something that is, in your, I will show, but I guess what his words were, I'll show you motherfucker, I'll show you fuckers, I'll be richer than you, I'll be better than you, and I'll be right here in your place. And so that's kind of where it came out. And like I said, it was a blues song, but Lambert and Stamp, whoever, whichever one it was, were like, we want you to really punch this up, punch it up, and make it a Who song, not a blues song. And that's kind of the end product.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, the demos are quite interesting. I've only heard, I'm only aware of two of them existing. I'm not sure if there's any more that I'm not aware of.
I want to say there's a podcast I told you I listened to late last night, and I want to say there were three. And
Okay.
the third one was fascinating to me because it sounded almost like a Beach Boys song with the hand claps and everything. Like I was like very Beach Boys inspired. I would say maybe he'll deny that, but that's what I got from it.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that was trying to sort of make Keith happy, maybe.
We are all about making Keith happy.
That's it. But yeah, it's interesting talking about the demos and also where the idea for the song came from because you mentioned some of the people in Belgravia who maybe would have inspired this.
Yes.
I heard something slightly different, and you've probably read this as well. I think it's in Mark Wilkinson's book about Pete Townshend, which I've only just started reading recently, I have
Oh,
to
it's great.
admit.
Yeah,
But
it's
it,
really, really good.
yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. But he tells the story of a woman driving a, oh no, sorry, Pete driving a Lincoln Continental with the top down, and
Uh-huh.
then an attractive upper class woman, should we say, sort of stopping her car next to his in traffic and then making the comment, "Are you driving mummy's car?" Which I guess is a different version of the woman in the shop with the
Yeah.
pearls. And
I think there's slightly different versions of everything because later on, in 1975, he's interviewed by Roy Carr, and we'll talk about that later. But you know, talking about the fluidity of the memories of this time, um, Pete mentions that he quote wrote the song when he was 22 or 23, and I'm like, you weren't. Like do the math, bro. You were not 22 or 23 years old. So there's, and I'll tell you something else that's really interesting is we get to the stutter, and
mm,
we've talked about, it's been discussed. It was it supposed to mimic the stutter of a mod who's blocked, on drugs, or was it imitation of Sonny Boy Williamson? And then I can remember Roger at one point saying, "Oh, it was just cold in the studio and my teeth were chattering." So again, there's this fluidity of memory, this the malleability of memory, which we see a lot with the Who.
yes, very much so.
Yes,
One man's fluidity of memory is another man's bullshit, basically. And
yeah, yeah. They're a very interesting study in myth making, and sometimes I feel myth making to their detriment. I mean, Keith's case, very much so.
yeah, I mean, maybe it just became ingrained that they couldn't help but just fabricate the truth.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure when you're sitting around having a few, of a few cocktails. In the Who's case, all the cocktails, and these wonderful, wonderful stories. That they're, digress for just a moment, but I remember Pete talking about, you know, they're in a hotel and they're checking out, and Keith drives a car through the front of the into the lobby, and it makes a great story. And I'm like, but when you get older, you're like, wouldn't that compromise the integrity of the structure? Wouldn't you have to like evacuate? you know, like yeah, when you're sitting around bullshitting with your friends, yeah, they're great stories. Now, true, some of them are, who knows?
Yeah, that's it. Speaking of
Yeah.
to go on a quick tangent, one thing I read about only today, I think I found out about this, was Mick Jagger told a story a few years ago about waking up in his hotel room and Keith Moon standing at the foot of his bed dressed as Batman.
And it gets better because didn't Mick try to fight him? And Keith was like, "No, no, no, it's me, Keith." And Mick Jagger's like, "You're not Keith," thinking Keith Richards.
Yeah, just brilliant.